Hello and welcome to The Take. I'm your host, Chesley McNeil. Each weekday, we're looking at stories, making headlines, and bringing experts from our community to give their take. Here's a look back at some of the top takes from this week and how those in the know are seeing those stories that impact you.
Right about now, families are saying, where is the summer going? It's flying by, a busy time for parents as they make plans for back to school. The DeKalb County Board of Health is helping parents get their kids ready for the new year by keeping one of its 4 public health centers a little later each Tuesday. Here to explain the move is Eric Nikima with the DeKalb Public Health. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Cheryl. Thanks for having me.
So every year, back to school rush, it hits hard. Every year, we just fall into that routine. Why are these extended hours so critical for families really everywhere, but you're doing this in DeKalb County right now?
That is correct. It's hard to believe. It seems like just yesterday we ended the school year, and now 2-3 weeks out from the new school year. This is very important because this essentially is like our holiday season, so to speak. So we're encouraging everyone to get in here as soon as they can because we don't want people to wait till the last minute. Just like holiday shopping, you wait till the last minute, there are going to be delays, and you don't know what the unexpected may hold. So that's why we have these extended hours starting today at our North DeKalb Health Center, and we'll be rotating them through our other 3 health centers throughout the rest of the month and into the first week of August.
Because the to-do list is pretty long, and it can be hard to balance work schedules, family schedules, and getting those appointments. We're talking about immunizations, dental checks, maybe that birth certificate that's needed. What do you see are some of the most common things that families tend to forget until the last minute?
Believe it or not, particularly for those individuals who are moving in to Georgia for the first time, they're not aware of our immunization requirements here and the paperwork that is needed by the schools. So checking that off and getting that taken care of before the school year starts is critical.
You know, I'm thinking about, the summertime is downtime for the kids, but parents, they keep on working. So for a parent walking in maybe after work, what should they expect? What services can they knock out there all in one stop?
So we do provide immunizations as well as school health physicals as well. If you have a child that is playing sports, we do athletic physicals as well. So we're kind of that one-stop shop that everything can be taken care of at the same time. What we do encourage parents and guardians to do is to arrive as early as possible. Even though we're open till 7:30 p.m., everybody else has got the same mindset and will probably have a lobby full, but in time we will get to you and get you taken care of. The key is to pack your patience.
All right. Yeah, worth the wait, no doubt. So if it's a grandparent, maybe an auntie, a caregiver parent, if someone who's bringing that child isn't sure about insurance, perhaps they don't have coverage, can they still come in and get help for their child?
They can still come in, most certainly, but be sure to bring the immunization records as well as the type of insurance so we can be able to screen that and run that through. That will definitely expedite the process. Also, we'll need proof of permission to treat the child if it is a grandparent or if it's not the parent.
Good. That's a really good point. Before we go, for families perhaps new to Georgia or just new to DeKalb, especially after moving over the summer, how important is it to have that child's full health records and immunization history in hand?
It is very important to have that, particularly if you're moving from another state. There's the mindset that we will be able to tap into our magical computers here at the health centers and be able to pull records up from another state. Unfortunately, that is not the case. So if you're coming in from another state, we strongly encourage you to have those immunization records on hand when you come to the health center. And if you have any questions about what is required for childhood immunizations and preparing for back to school, we encourage you to visit the Georgia Department of Public Health's website as well. That has a full list of what is required
Last month, an advisory panel with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommended that adults and children no longer receive flu vaccines containing thimerosal. It's a preservative that was mostly phased out of vaccines about 25 years ago, but it's still used in a small percentage of multi-dose vials to prevent contamination. Joining us from Denver, Dr. Py Kohley, a cardiologist and medical director of Cherry Creek Heart. Thanks for being on the show, and we'll have to get the correct pronunciation from the expert, from the doctor here.
Thimerosal, Cheryl.
Thimerosal, okay, good to know. So let's start with this from your perspective. Is this a science-based move, or is this more political?
You know, it's funny that the spotlight has been turned onto thimerosal because it's been around since the 1930s. So really, this is not driven by science because there is no new science about this compound. It's a preservative that we use in vaccines, multi-dose vaccines, to help them, prevent bacterial and fungal contamination. So this has largely been driven by really a focus from the current administration on trying to avoid mercury because it is a mercury-based product. And so there's no new science to suggest why we're doing this now. But it's interesting because it's come up now in so many discussions.
Yeah, we see so many online forums, so much on social media. You mentioned it's a mercury-derived preservative. How would you respond, or maybe assure parents who hear the word mercury and immediately think something negative, maybe danger, even autism risk?
Yeah, this is my concern, actually, now that we're talking about it, is that people are going to fuel their vaccine hesitancy, which we know has already become such a big problem following the COVID pandemic. And so the way to think about it is to really understand what type of mercury. So the mercury that's found in fish that accumulates in tissues in our body, like the brain, and has potentially been linked to autism is methyl mercury. This product has a breakdown called ethyl mercury, so a different type of mercury that doesn't accumulate in the body. Now, in animal studies, ethyl mercury, which is what thimerosal contains, has been linked to some oxidative stress, but this has not shown to be true in humans. So the first thing is it's different types of mercury. The second thing is, as you mentioned, the product has been phased out for over 25 years, and yet we've seen an increase in autism, not a decrease. So if it was linked to autism, one might expect to see a decrease. So the analogy that I like to use is like, regular alcohol versus rubbing alcohol. They both have the word alcohol in them, but certainly one is safe to drink and the other isn't.
That's a great example. And this conversation is why it's so important to hear from a medical professional, to go a little deeper than maybe a 15-second video online, because there's a lot of nuances that help us understand the scientific issue and make those decisions for our families. Just to reiterate, is there any legitimate health reason today to avoid thimerosal in small number of vaccines that still contain it?
So for the majority of Americans, the World Health Organization, the CDC, and the FDA, and the American Academy of Pediatrics have unanimously said there's absolutely no reason to avoid thimerosal. Get the vaccine, get yourself, your children, your family members protected. Now, there are three sort of subgroups that may want to think about avoiding it. One is somebody who has a true allergy to thimerosal, which is very rare. If you're under 6 months of age, an infant under 6 months, that population is not well studied, so that's a group to avoid, and usually they don't get vaccines that have that. And finally, pregnant women, again, out of an abundance of caution, not because there's any scientific evidence linking this to autism or any other adverse outcomes.
All right, we are on the verge of back to school. Fall made me think of flu season. Could limiting these multi-dose vaccines impact how many flu shots could be available?
Really, it can. And this is my biggest worry as a physician, is that what are we doing by cutting off our supply chain? After the pandemic, we've already had supply chain issues. And we know that multi-dose vials are easier to make, they're easier to ship, easier to store, easier to administer, especially in low-income areas. So by cutting it out altogether, we may really choke the vaccine supply in some of those socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhoods, which means less flu shots, which means more infection, more adverse outcomes.
It is a troubling twist hitting families right now. Scammers using artificial intelligence and stolen identities to pose as students and then drain millions of dollars from federal financial aid. With more on this now, Maurice Simkins, CEO of AM Simkins and Associates, a software company based in Gwinnett County. Good to have you on the show, Maurice. Thanks for the time.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
All right, let's talk about these fake college students. They call them, ghost students, and how real, though, that threat is.
It is a very real threat. Not only, the fact of ghost students, but the fact of those ghost students are stealing real folks' money, real taxpayers' money, and they're causing a lot of malicious activity within the operations of higher education currently.
All right, I know you're kind of studying how they're like getting into the system here. So what would you say is the typical playbook for these fraudsters? And are certain types of colleges or students maybe more vulnerable to these scams?
Yes, I would say the playbook is very wide and very open. It has been a lot of foreign actors of what we've been able to track from that side. They're going after what we in the industry call low-hanging fruit. And so institutions that have open admissions, which is pretty much the community college infrastructure in America, the lifeblood of a lot of our education, the open admissions infrastructure there, a lot of the fraudsters are just taking the opportunity to do their A/B testing and get through those potential walls. And once they're getting in and they've, perfected that fake identity or that stolen identity, then they're moving on to attacking online schools and even taking, classes, matriculating through a community college to now take that transcript along with their faked identity to try to go to a larger state supported institution or four-year school.
Wow, that's so interesting. It made me think as you're talking, Maurice, that maybe anybody who knows someone at that community college level or maybe dual enrollment students, a really important conversation maybe for a parent to have with one of those kids. What warning signs maybe should students or families be looking for in their FAFSA account, the email, even maybe a credit report?
I would say everything could be potentially suspicious. If you get an email that does not look 100% correct, these days the scammers using AI and using some of the tools available to them are making it look very, very, very legit. And so it's harder for parents, even the students, to even try to assimilate what's good or bad. Many of the students are up, more known with the technology,
Sure.
but they're not able to understand that at times they're being victimized. And when you have a student who's trying to get into an institution and they may get a letter from a fake fraudster or someone saying, hey, you've been accepted, click here to enter your information, click here to, do some payments and things of that sort. These fraudsters are operating in a manner with which we know that they're after the funds and they're not stopping in any manner, whether it's funds from the parent or the student through fraudulent application infrastructures or funds through the institutions or in the government because they're stealing, financial aid funds that should be distributed to real students.
Yeah, students that need that help as college is so expensive. And with technology, it's harder and harder to really see sometimes the red flags within those phishing or scam emails. I'm curious, is there a way for a family to be a little more proactive before they see something they think could be wrong? Could they double check if an application's may already been filed in their name without their knowledge?
In most cases, all the institutions that we work with, they have some sort of duplicate checking infrastructure. And so if you were able to go out and do an application at an institution, something would be triggered to say, we've gotten an application from you before, and you may be notified of that, or they may send you toward their portal infrastructure to say, okay, you've logged in here before, continue logging in. And that may be something that is strange to you. What we're even seeing more of is, regular citizens, in America who are now getting letters from collections companies that say, hey, you owe money to this community college in Iowa or in Kentucky or in Georgia. And in many cases, some of these folks have never entered these states or heard of these schools. And so the threat is on both sides, very, very serious.
We're getting a lot of opportunities to display our hospitality here in the South, just coming off the All-Star game in this weekend, welcoming professionals, entrepreneurs, investors from all over the U.S. in Atlanta, not just for a finance seminar, but a movement aimed at closing the racial wealth gap. Here with us this morning, Carter Koffield, one of the co-founders of Melanin Money. Thanks for the time.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with the heart of it all. What exactly is Wealth Weekend coming up?
Yeah, so Wealth Weekend is an opportunity for entrepreneurs or high-earning W-2 earners to learn how to build true wealth, how to turn their income into assets, and how to learn how to invest and save on taxes. I'm a licensed CPA. My business partner is a licensed wealth manager. And we understand some people are making great money, but how do you manage it and how do you multiply it, because it's not taught to us in schools.
Yeah, not just for wealth, but generational wealth. I'm curious how it all started for you. It feels like this is a passion kind of beyond business and your CPA background. Was there a moment maybe you realized that wealth building really needed to look different?
Yes, so I actually read an article and it said that African American wealth was slated to go to zero by 2053. And that really struck a chord in me because, as you can see, I am of that descent. And I understand there's a disparity in the education and wealth gap for people of color versus other people. And I wanted to make it my personal responsibility to take the knowledge that I was blessed with to bridge that gap and teach and lead other people in the community so they can help not just themselves, but their families as well.
Yeah, that knowledge now making long-term impacts. So what makes Melanin Money different, not just in what you teach, but how you build community?
Yeah, so it's led by two individuals that actually have licenses. I'm a licensed financial advisor. My partner is a licensed CFP, which is a certified financial planner. So due to the fact that we got the education and got the licenses, we are not just able to educate our clients. We are actually able to provide the service to make sure they get there. So we're not just selling secrets, we're providing services. We're not just educating, we're allowing to help them with the execution. So I think that's what makes us different than a lot of other community builders, because they can only teach, they can't help their clients implement.
Sure. From your lens, from your personal experience, what are some of the invisible forces, systemic or cultural, that still keep that wealth gap in place today?
I'm a firm believer that you cannot be what you cannot see. So because there's a lack of representation of people of color that have this multi-million-dollar net worth, some people don't think it's achievable. So I think it starts with, again, us leading the way and showing that if we can do it, you can do it too. And matter of fact, let us show you exactly how we did it so you can set this up for you and your family. All
right, so final thought from you. What would you want the takeaway for people watching to be? What's the biggest mindset shift you'd want them to walk away with?
The biggest mindset shift. If you want to enter the land of phenomenal, you must first be willing to leave the land of familiar. So get uncomfortable, get in rooms that you normally wouldn't be in so you can have the life that you said you wanted.
Instead of being in your child's classroom, your money is sitting in Washington here because the Secretary of Education could not be bothered to meet a deadline. That is the difference between a school having an after-school program or not.
Georgia's Congresswoman Lucy McBath is calling for $7 billion in withheld federal funding for schools. It comes as the Trump administration is set to resume its plan to dismantle the Department of Education. One part of that plan is laying off nearly 1,400 employees. Joining us here on The Take, Representative Lucy McBath, serving Georgia's 6th District in Congress since 2019. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
So why do you think the administration waited until this 11th hour to delay the funding? Do you feel that was a calculated political move or perhaps symptomatic of deeper operational issues?
Well, as we know, it's no secret that this administration wants to defund and dismantle the Department of Education. So I truly believe that they knew that this deadline was coming forth July 1st, and they just determined that they weren't going to allocate the funding. And it's really distressing because this is the job of Congress. We allocate funds to make sure our public schools, our teachers are trained, make sure the public school funding is allocated all across the state. And for them to illegally withhold these funds is just not morally and ethically right. It's just not. You talk about $225 million that's supposed to be allocated to Georgia alone. This hurts not only our students, it is a disservice to our teachers. Those funds are used for training our teachers, before school, after school programs. There's like 5 grant programs now, statewide, but also nationwide, that this money is supposed to be appropriated for. And they knew that this July deadline was something that they were going to should have adhered to, and they didn't. And it was deliberate. I firmly believe it was deliberate because of the overreaching goal to dismantle the Department of Education.
So that deadline passed, and then we got the decision from the Supreme Court. Tuesday, President Trump was asked about that decision ruling concerning the Department of Education. Let's take a listen to what he said.
We had a big win with the Supreme Court on the Department of Education. We want, as you know, we want to bring education back to the states, take the federal government out of it, a little tiny bit of supervision, but very little, almost nothing, like to make sure they speak English. That's about all we need. We have school choice, and we're getting school choice approved all over the country. We just got it done in Texas, and school choice is the answer.
So the president talking about putting it back on the responsibility solely really of the states. He's talking about supervision, but really funding is a question. Can you talk about your reaction and how this impacts classrooms? Parents are watching, they're wondering what happens to special education programs, to schools in underserved communities, kids on individualized learning plans. What would be the real-time day-to-day impacts if this, not just supervision, but funding is pulled from the federal level?
Absolutely. I've spoken to parents that are just absolutely they're appalled because they enroll their children in these programs that would help with children that have dyslexia, children that have other disabilities. And now those funds are not there. So where do they turn? A youth center in Thomasville, Georgia closed 2 weeks early because the funding that they depended on, that they count on every summer, wasn't available to them. So you're going to continue to see these kinds of problems over and over again in every county. We know within Georgia, the Atlanta public school system, Cobb County, my district, of course, Douglas County, schools are starting by August 4th, and those funds aren't there. And so a lot of the programs that our parents are depending on to help assist and support our children academically, they're not going to be there. And it's a snowball effect. What happens federally, the states are depending on these resources, and those resources aren't there. Each and every state financially allocates different resources for public school education. Not every state across the country has the same level of financing. And that is the reason why the federal government, the Department of Education, has been undergirding and helping to support these public school programs to make sure that every child across the nation is given an equal opportunity for the same kinds of education. And now those resources are not going to be there. And that is egregious. It's hurting not only our children, but it's a disservice to our families. And most definitely, they're abandoning our teachers.
And this has been in place since 1979, of course, with roots in Georgia because President Jimmy Carter established the Department of Education. We saw his image there on the screen a moment ago. Quickly, are you planning additional tactics, maybe hearings, shutdown threats, targeted amendments, to ensure those funds get doled out somehow?
Most assuredly. I sit on the Committee of Jurisdiction, which is the Committee for Education and Workforce, and we are planning right now to make sure that we hold this administration accountable, that we hold the Department of Education and Secretary McMahon accountable for, really making sure that, our children have the support that they deserve and they need. So we're going forward. This is not the only tactic. 150 of my colleagues signed on to a letter that I put forth last Thursday to the Department of Education and the Trump administration demanding that they release these funds. There are 24 states across the country that have also sued the Trump administration for the withholding of these funds. So we're just starting. We're just beginning. There's more to come.
All right. You mentioned that $225 million specifically to Georgia. You warned that Georgia and other states facing layoffs, program cuts. From conversations that you're having with maybe local superintendents, teachers, parents, what's the specific toll that you're hearing, maybe data that you're seeing on the ground?
Well, I've reached out to appropriate contacts at the Department of Education, the White House. I've talked to teachers, and they're very, very afraid. They know that the programs that they have been involved in, you're talking about resources, just resources that they need to be able to even have in the classroom. They're not going to have those resources. They're very afraid. Of course, we know that our labor unions, they're working on the ground, doing everything that they can. The teachers' unions are working on the ground, making sure that they're putting forth all efforts to demand accountability from this administration.
And like you said, much more to come. I want to turn back before we run out of time to local politics here in Georgia. Midterms approaching quickly. Several candidates have already declared their choice to run. You paused your campaign for governor back in March. Do you have plans to start that campaign back up?
No, I do not. No plans at this point. There is a lot to be done here in Washington. There's a lot to be done here on the Hill. I want to continue to focus and make sure that I'm doing everything to help support and undergird my constituents in the 6th District and all across the state of Georgia. There's so much more to be done, and I want to make sure that I'm working every single day on behalf of Georgians that are really counting on us here in Washington. With all of the budget cuts, people being laid off their jobs, there's so much that people are really worried and concerned about, and they have a right to be. And so I've made the decision to stand firm, stay where I am, and to fight the good fight right here in Washington.
So on that note, when will you announce your plans to run for re-election for the House seat?
I'm already running for re-election for the House seat. We run every 2 years, and so we've already begun that campaign.
All right. So many of our lifelines are contained in one place, right? The phone. So much of what you need is on your phone, and that is just growing. Joining us now, Susan Sports with the State Department of Driver Services. Welcome to The Take.
Good morning. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about digital ID. Some people might feel a little more secure if they have a physical card to put in their hand. But what do you feel about digital ID perhaps even being more secure than those physical cards?
Well, it definitely is more secure. If you think about it, if you lose your wallet, what happens? Somebody finds it, picks it up, and they've actually got your driver's license, your ID, and everything in their hands. If you lose your phone, odds are you've got a PIN number that someone would have to guess. You can automatically or call and have your phone turned off. So it is more secure. I want to say, though, please continue to carry the hard copy of your driver's license. The future's coming, but we're not there yet. We've just celebrated 500,000 Georgians adding their Georgia digital driver's license into their wallet. So please get prepared. Right now, you can use it when you're traveling through the Atlanta airport and other airports across the nation through TSA. You can use your digital driver's license, but please continue to carry your hard copy for now. We also are excited and anticipating in 2 years, law enforcement will be accepting the digital driver's license. They have 2 years to get the reader to decide how they're going to incorporate that into traffic stops. So July 1st, 2027, if you don't have your license on you, there'll be an option for law enforcement to accept your digital driver's license. So future is coming, and we're excited about it.
All right, future's coming, not here yet, so we're in a bit of a transition. You said 500,000 and a few million to go, so that's really interesting. So you mentioned TSA. Outside of TSA checkpoints, traffic stops, like you said, that'll be 2 years away. Where else can someone actually use it right now?
Well, another new news, we're excited that when you come to visit one of our DDS centers, you can use it to actually get fast VIP service. So if you have your digital driver's license in your wallet, you come to one of our centers, you can scan that and it will pre-populate the application and the paperwork that we need. It'll put you ahead of folks that the first step when you come in is you must fill out the application on one of our computers on our tech deck if you haven't already done it. So we're incorporating it into our business process, and everyone that comes in with the digital driver's license can get VIP service.
Who doesn't love a little VIP service, right? So we were talking about digital licenses in terms of traffic stops. When that is in place and all of that's tied up, are there any privacy protections built into something like that? Perhaps an officer could see some more information on a phone that someone wouldn't want when they hand it over. Are those conversations that are being had?
There are, and of course, law enforcement will get to see everything that's typically on your driver's license. The big security part comes in, say if you've got to show your driver's license for age verification. Instead of handing over your driver's license that has your address, your weight, all of that information, if someone scans it just to verify your age, they'll only get the alert that, yes, you are over 21. So that's where security comes in.
Okay.
And privacy.
All right, because that's always a top of mind question for people. What does maybe overall success look like for Georgia's digital license program in your eyes?
Well, we think it's successful already. It's available no matter what kind of smartphone you have. You can add it to your wallet. It's an easy process. You just go to your wallet, click add, and it'll walk you through it. But again, we're preparing for the future. We know technology and this younger generation loves their phones. So we're working towards that.
How many other states are using digital IDs around the country?
At least 10. So it's definitely a movement. And, you know, Georgia's proud to have been one of the first.
It's been 6 months since Georgia and the nation paid final farewell to Jimmy Carter. The former president died in late December at the age of 100. And after days of tributes here in Atlanta and Washington, D.C., Carter was laid to rest next to his wife near his home in Plains. Now his burial site has been open to visitors. Here with more on that is Jennifer Hopkins. She's the lead education ranger with the Jimmy Carter National Historical Park in Plains. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. Let's start with this. Jimmy and Rosalind Clark has always called Plains their home. How does this town itself help tell the story to the visitors, folks coming to pay respects to the site?
Yeah. Here at Jimmy Carter National Historical Park and Plains, Georgia, we're really committed to sharing the Carter legacy. So we love to talk about not only his time as president of the United States, but as him and Miss Rosalind as a couple and their global impact. Visitors who come to Plains really get the small town feel that really built this power couple, essentially, and they can see why they wanted to come back in their post-presidency years and spend their time here amongst their global travels.
Yeah. Talk to me about the site itself. Walk me through what visitors will experience when they come to pay their respects.
Right, so the Carter Gardens is the newest publicly open feature of Jimmy Carter National Historical Park, which is also comprised of Plains High School, which is where the Carters went to school, the Boyhood Farm, where Jimmy Carter grew up, the historic Plains Depot, which is the campaign headquarters for his 1976 campaign, and the Carter Gardens, which is essentially their front yard and final resting place for them. So as visitors come to the site, they'll be able to view the memorial gardens, which were personally designed by Mr. and Mrs. Carter themselves, a beautiful pond that was built by Jimmy Carter and his brother Billy, and then just the grounds that the Carters enjoyed family and friends with. And then their memorial, so their grave sites, which are a simplistic grave site, which I think is a great tribute to their legacy.
Yeah. Why wasn't it so important for the Carters to be their final resting place be here in Plains, and how does that reflect their values?
Plains is their home, and they've invested so much in their hometown, and I think it's a way to say thank you and to give back. Carter's campaign in 1976 was groundbreaking in that it was a grassroots campaign. They had people, family, friends from Plains go throughout all 50 states campaigning for him door to door. And so I think this is their way of saying thank you for getting us to where we were and for helping us build this life together. And so now they want to bring people in to also get that little taste of Plains and that hometown feel.
Yeah. Finally let us know how people can prepare for a visit.
Well, right now it's July in Georgia, so definitely bring a gnat swatter. We are below the gnat line and water. But again, we love, especially as park rangers, we love hearing any memories that you have, whether Carter was the first president that you voted for, or you have some memory of coming down during the peanut parade and meeting Mr. and Mrs. Carter, but just being able to come and visit. There's 2 spaces to the grounds. We have a reflective, contemplative space where you can come, read a book, enjoy some quiet time. But then we also have a recreational area where you can bring your pets on leash, picnic with family, and again, just enjoy time outdoors.
When John Lewis died in 2020, it left his spot on that November ballot vacant. It was filled by Nikima Williams, who was at the time serving as state senate. She would go on to win in the general election, and now she is joining us. Congresswoman Williams, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So happy that you're with us this morning. Listen, start off with your personal reflection on John Lewis and what kind of leader he was.
You know, Congressman Lewis was that person. People tell you you should never meet your heroes because you might be disappointed, but he was everything that you thought he would be. I had an opportunity to know him personally and learn from him and just take it all in before even realizing that I would ever have the opportunity to serve in the seat that he served this district in this country for over 30 years. So it is the honor of my life to serve this district, to be able to just take part of what he taught me and to give it back to so many people, especially in these very trying times. People will ask me what it's like to serve in the seat from John Lewis and what does good trouble mean to me. And with everything going on right now, and I think about some of the quotes that he left us with. A lot of people use the good trouble, necessary trouble, but the one that really, really stands out to me is he said, let us not get lost in a sea of despair. Let us be hopeful, be optimistic. He was always joyful. He was always optimistic. And he said, because our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, or a month. Our struggle is the struggle of a lifetime. So each generation has an obligation to do its part. And I think that's what I hold closely, because it's easy to get caught up in everything happening and feel like you're not doing enough or feel like you want to give up. But you know that this struggle is not for one day. And so you keep going and you stay focused. And so I hold on to that daily.
Yeah. You mentioned 30 years that he served in that seat. And you mentioned a quote that you like or that carries you. Is that what carries you in your daily work with Congress?
Absolutely, because Chelsea, I will tell you, it is trying up here in Washington. I'm in D.C. right now. We thought that we're going to be leaving today, so I won't be seeing the good people of Georgia's Fighting Fifth back home today because we have votes until 7:30 tonight, and Congress is very unpredictable. And so in a time when so many things are not certain and unpredictable, it's good to hold on to those things that you know. And I know that the things that Congressman Lewis went through to give me the opportunity to serve in this body as a Black woman from the South, I am literally living my ancestors' wildest dreams. And it's because of the sacrifices that Congressman Lewis made over 60 years ago on the Edmund Pettus Bridge so that I would have the right to vote, so that you would have the right to be on TV in Atlanta, Georgia. Imagine that in the South. And this is all because Congressman Lewis sacrificed for us. And so we have an obligation to keep these doors open for the next generation.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about something close to your heart. We're talking about voting rights. You co-sponsored the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, Achievement Act. How does that legislation capture what he stood for, and how do you see that impacting voters here in Atlanta and nationwide?
So I have long said that when you're looking at voting rights, we should not be piecemealing it state by state by state. And as a member of Congress, I have the opportunity to introduce legislation that impacts the entire country, because it shouldn't be whether you live in Georgia or Alabama or California what your right to vote is. It should be standardized across the board. And that's all that we're looking for. We want fairness across the board, regardless of where you live. Everybody should have equal access to the ballot box. I tell the story that my son, if he's in Atlanta and goes to McDonald's, he knows that if he orders a Happy Meal, he's going to get a toy, he's going to get his chicken nuggets, a soda, and fries across the board. But if he goes to Paris, he's going to get the same thing, a toy, chicken nuggets, and his French fries and a Coke. But voting rights is piecemeal. Depending on where you are, we want standardized access to the ballot across the board. Congressman Lewis fought for equal access to the ballot box for all people, and we're still fighting for that 60 years from that date. And so there's more work to be done, but I'm excited to be the representative from Georgia's Fighting 5th Congressional District, and I'm here to get the work done.
Yeah. Speaking of that, still fighting, what do you believe is the next crucial fight in the struggle for civil and human rights?
Well, this is absolutely right now our civil rights moment. When we look at everything going on with our immigrant community, when you look at what is happening with Medicaid and SNAP benefits and what we're facing here, we have an obligation to speak out for the least of these. And this is our opportunity to stand up and find our way to get in the way. It's not going to look exactly the same as it did with Congressman Lewis, and everybody doesn't have to step in at the same time, but this is our civil rights movement, and it's our obligation to find a way to get in the way and to speak up for those most marginalized, speak up for people being disappeared by our federal government, speak up for people, students, children who are losing food. we have after school programs that are being cut right here in Georgia. I have a 9-year-old son, so I understand the importance of making sure that our young people have somewhere to go when their parents are still at work. Atlanta Public Schools, they get out at 2:45. I don't know how many jobs in Atlanta let their parents off at 2:45 to take care of their kids. So what is happening with our after school programming? We have an obligation to find a way to get in the way, because this is our civil rights movement when we're rolling back the rights of so many people, the Department of Education being dismantled, and that gives so many people opportunities, Pell Grants being cut. This is a rollback in our civil rights, and we've got to speak up. If not now, then when?
Well, it's a simple idea with big impacts. Yeah, Metro Atlanta gardeners are being asked to try to turn a little extra summer produce into fresh donations for local food pantries. Here to explain more is Kathleen Moriarty with the Peachtree Hills Community Garden. Kathleen, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you. Good morning.
Absolutely. For those of us who are unfamiliar with what exactly is the Plant a Row for the Hungry, and how does it work right here in Metro Atlanta?
Plant a Row for the Hungry is a program that started in Alaska, back in the late 1980s, and where a broadcaster or journalist encouraged gardeners, food growers of all sorts, to plant an extra row or an extra plant to donate to food pantries to feed the hungry, and obviously caught on. And it became established in Atlanta in the around 1994, 95, I believe. And it's just that. It's asking people who grow food to plant a row or even a plant specifically to donate to food pantries to feed people who would not otherwise have access to fresh, locally grown vegetables.
And how has it been going so far?
Well, in our community garden, we've participated in the Plant of the Row Hungry program for 15 years. Our garden was started in 2008, and in 2010 we started the Plant a Row program. So we have donated around 3,370 pounds of produce over the 15 years. We average about 250 pounds of produce a year.
Wow.
To food pantries.
Wow. And so you've seen it grow throughout the years, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. More people getting involved with this.
We try to get more people involved all the time.
Yeah. We've been hearing about urban agriculture in Atlanta. How does that Plant a Row play into the bigger food system conversation?
Well, there's an organization called Food Well Alliance, which is a spinoff basically of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. And their mission is to encourage community gardening and urban farming for the purpose of increasing donations through a Plant a Row from the Hungry program. So they're not saying everything you grow should go to a food pantry, but that you designate specific plants or specific areas of your garden for donations to food pantries. And that's really Food Well Alliance's mission. Wow.
You got some gardeners out there that may be watching the show. How do they get involved, and what is the most in-demand crop that they should grow if they're wondering about it?
Okay, what I've found over the years is tomatoes. I mean, you can't beat a locally grown fresh tomato. The tomatoes that come from California or Florida that were picked, 3 weeks ago and gassed to ripen don't have the same flavor as the one that was grown 2 miles away from the food pantry. So, my experience, the clients love the fresh tomatoes and okra. They go crazy for okra in the South. So
Really?
We have one whole row in our community garden that is just okra plants.
Really? Okra?
Yeah, I know. I'm from the New England. I'm not big on okra myself.
So tomatoes and okra are what you're looking for. What is there anything else that folks should?
Also we grow peppers, eggplants, squashes, cucumbers, jalapeno peppers. Those basically, potatoes. I grow small fingerling potatoes, but some places grow the sweet potatoes. Really, anything you would want to buy if you were at a farmer's market, that's what we like to see donated to food pantries.
So what happens to the produce once it reaches the pantry, and how quickly is it distributed out?
It's distributed quickly. We donate to the In-Town Cares Food Pantry on Ponce at the Druid Hills Presbyterian Church, and I deliver on Fridays, and it's put out on Tuesday. And then again they open up on Saturday. So sometimes if we have enough, I deliver again later in the week to go on the Saturday market for the Saturday donation for the people that come, for their clients that come for the food.
Right. What's your vision 5 years out from now for this program?
just more food, more gardeners. I would love to see, the city of Atlanta has 22 community gardens in city parks. That's where our garden was the first one ever put into a city park. They now have 22. And I would love to see this program in place at every one of those so that some fresh produce is coming from every city park community garden to a food pantry in the city of Atlanta. I think it's important. We're on city land, so we have an obligation to give back and give back in the city.
Yeah, I understand you have a program today.
Yes, Foodwell Alliance is coming down to the garden today, and they're going to film for their purposes, us doing some harvesting. We'll be harvesting potatoes and some tomatoes and some beans today.
Yeah. So if I'm new to this and I want to get involved, what do you recommend for my little backyard garden?
I would recommend that you log into the Foodwell Alliance website, foodwellalliance.org, and they have a map that identifies for you food pantries in your area, and you can just bring it yourself to those pantries. And I think it's really important that people understand there's no such thing as too small a contribution. 2 or 3 tomatoes and a cucumber may not be much to you, but it's a lot to the person who gets them.
Cheryl Preheim earlier in the week talked about a rock from Mars. You know, people spend a large amount of money for the strangest things, like millions for a potato chip shaped in the form of a dragon, or a sweatband from an athlete. Pay thousands of dollars for that. But how much would you pay for a rock from Mars? How about $5.3 million? Yeah, the Martian rock known as NWA 16788 weighs more than 54 pounds, nearly 15 inches long, and is 70% larger than the next biggest piece from Mars that's been discovered right here on the Earth. In fact, the rock was discovered in 2023 in the Saharan Desert by a meteorite hunter. Whoever knew there was such a thing? Folks, I'm talking about $5.3 million for a brownish, reddish rock. That's a lot of money for a piece of Mars. And how do we know it's even from Mars? It's not like we have anything to compare it to, right? It's from Mars. So what do you do with it? Do you put it on display in your home? It's a rock, folks. A rock. Can we do better things with that much money? $5.3 million. It's a rock. Have a great day, folks. That's all we got for you today. We'll be back right after this.